welcome everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here and celebrate this event with the award of the Honorary Fellowship to our guest today, Professor Alain Montfort. These fellowships have been established in 2010. And they have a special meaning for us because with these awards we celebrate distinguished professors, distinguished scholars that have been in touch and cooperated with us and have made an impact as academics and also as in public affairs and for society at large. We have started this program of honorary fellowships in 2010, and with a fellowship awarded to a scholar in international law, which was Zhu Hanmin. And since then, we have awarded a number of these fellowships, actually not many, 7 carefully chosen. Strangely enough, for the second business school in Europe, and the first one in Italy with almost 150 years of life, we haven't awarded any scholar in economics, and this is a good time to start. So I'm really pleased to fill this gap with a very distinguished guest today and scholar, Professor Montfort, who has distinguished himself in academics and for his results, has been a student in one of the most prestigious schools in Europe, the École Polytechnique, and then, sorry for my French, for the École Nationale de la Statistique et de l'Administration. Was that a good match? Not that my English is much better, but a bit better. Yes. So I'm stopping here and let Monica give a decent introduction to such our guest, and congratulations to Professor Montfort for being a Foscari Honorary Fellow.
Good afternoon first. It is a great honor and a pleasure for me to have the task of introducing Professor Alain Montfort and to say a few words about his personal and scientific achievements and contribution on the occasion of his receiving the Ca' Foscari Honorary Fellowship. Ca' Foscari has conferred the Honorary Fellowship mainly to honor Professor Montfort's research work, but also to pay tribute to his role as a teacher who, over the past 25 years, has regularly taught at Ca' Foscari on economics courses as well as on the International Master in Economics and Finance. Certainly, his work has shaped many of the core ideas and research themes of the French School of Econometrics and contributed to the advances in the field of econometrics. His first main contributions, produced jointly with Christian Bourrier-Roux and Jean-Jacques Lafont, were on disequilibrium econometrics and rational expectations. Rational expectations are still a basic tool in the now popular dynamic stochastic general equilibrium model, which represent important tools for policymakers and central banks. In the early 80s, his joint work with Christian Bourrier-Roux and Alain Troyon introduced the pseudo-maximum likelihood and showed that misspecified models may play a positive role. This opened the way to other study in the same spirit, in particular on encompassing and on indirect inference. In 1996, he gave a Coles Foundation lecture on a appraisal of misspecified models. His research first focused on estimation methods that were robust to a given type of misspecification, and pseudo-likelihood is an example of such a method. Later on, he realized that misspecified models could be a useful tool or instrument for providing information on other well or misspecified models. The idea became so obvious in the context of a compassing model that it was formalized in a problem of non-nested hypotheses. And it is even more clear in the indirect inference approach, where the model of interest is difficult to estimate but easy to simulate, and then a misspecified model is used as an instrument to help estimate the model of interest. In the same year, he was appointed as co-editor of the journal Econometrica. During the years he held this position, it is his best to promote econometrics and applied econometrics. His work and research continued with contributions that ranged from latent factor models and their estimation procedures to financial econometrics, with attention to discrete time models. His aim is to recognize a role for econometrics not simply as a method to obtain parameter estimate, but as a framework to reconcile pricing model and real data observations. Professor Montfort has also greatly influenced the profession through his numerous textbooks and research monographs. These textbooks were first published in French and then in English, thus being made available for students in PhD programs all around the world. I can certainly affirm that the width and the depth of his intellectual curiosity and scientific achievements will be long-lasting, as he will his own way of tackling thoroughly technical issues and approaching policy-relevant problems. Let me add few personal words. I was one of his PhD students, and in particular in those years in which he was co-editor of Econometrica, and I had the privilege of being at CREST, where I studied and worked with many other economists who are now colleagues around the world. I learned a great deal from him, and amongst his main qualities, I most appreciated his unfailing willingness to listen to students and to discuss their work, his absolute intellectual honesty, and his enormous sense of respect for research, for those who carry it out with passion. I always strive to have the same courtesy and constancy, although I am aware what a hard task that can be. For this too, I would like to thank him, and I am delighted that Ca' Foscari is awarding him this honorary fellowship. It gives me a great pleasure to warmly wish Professor Montfort all the best for many more years in his role as teacher and mentor for all of us. Thank you.
We now proceed with the award, and I have the mention and the reason for the award, for awarding the fellowship. This is in Italian. I won't attempt to translate it on the fly, or I can, but I'll read it first in Italian, and you probably will understand it. Noi, leggo, professor Michele Pugliesi, rettore dell'Università Ca' Foscari di Venezia, vista la proposta del Consiglio di Dipartimento di Economia di conferire il riconoscimento di membro onorario del corpo accademico di Ca' Foscari a Alain Montfort, nato a Saint-Malo in Francia il 22 gennaio del 1943, in considerazione dei suoi numerosi apporti alla ricerca in ambito econometrico e alle sue applicazioni economico-finanziarie riconosciute a livello internazionale, considerato il suo contributo quale docente all'International Mastering in Economics and Finance, fin dalla sua istituzione, vista la delibera del Senato accademico numero 43 dell'8 giugno 2016, conferiamo al professor Alain Montfort il riconoscimento di membro onorario del corpo accademico dell'Università Ca' Foscari di Venezia. Congratulazioni.
Professor Pugliese and Monica Miglio for these very kind words. I am very glad and very proud to receive this title of what is the word? Honorary fellow of this university. It is true, like Monica said, that I gave many courses in this university, but in fact, work in this university is not really work. I mean, because, for instance, of this incredible environment. You see, when I am on the Vaporetto, on the Grand Canal, and when I go to the university, I have difficulty to convince myself that I'm going to work. And also, of course, because of the kindness of all the people I am working with at the university. And in the first place, Domenico Sartori and Monica Miglio, who are experts in making a very pleasant the stay of all the people they invite. So I am very grateful to them. Thank you very much. So thank you to all of you again. Now, as far as the talk I'm giving today is concerned, when I discussed this point with Monica, she told me to try to be less technical and less specialized as possible. I will try to do that, but econometrics is in fact a set of technical tools. So if you delete technicality, you almost delete econometrics, so it's not so easy. But I will do my best. At least I will try to be less specialized as possible. By choosing, for instance, a very well-known tool, which is a normal distribution. You know, the normal distribution is a very old notion, which has been used for many years, and I will try to see what are the connections with this very well-known tool with another well-known tool in macroeconomics, which are the structural shocks and the so-called impulse response functions. Maybe I will not keep the hand. Okay, so in fact, yes, this talk will be based on two papers written with my colleague Christian Goyot and Jean-Paul Rennes, and one is going to be published, the second one is more work in progress. As you know, the normal distribution is a very old notion, but it is not so easy to decide who had first the idea of the normal distribution. In fact, there are many candidates. Of course, in Germany, you have Gauss. In France, you have Laplace and De Moivre. In Switzerland, you have Bernoulli. But in fact, many Italians, well, not necessarily Italians, but many historians, not necessarily Italians, think that the first who had the I think the intuition of the normal distribution is this man. And I guess you have recognized, because this man gave many courses during many years in a university not far from here. And this man is Galileo. And in fact, the normal distribution should not be called the Gaussian distribution or the Laplace-Gauss distribution, but the Galilean distribution, because it is the first who had the idea, in fact. In any case, it's a very old notion, and it is very striking to see that even in the recent research, we still find new properties of this normal distribution. Some are good, some are bad, it depends on the context. In my context, in fact, the properties of, the context of structural shocks and impulse response function, the properties of normal distribution are bad. So I am going to show, in some sense, the dark side of the normal distribution. But to put it in a more positive way, since it will be the only distribution to have these bad properties, this can be seen as a good way to stress the good properties of non-normal distribution, which are, in fact, very common and very usual in many fields, in particular in finance and macroeconometrics applied to finance and to monetary domain. Okay. So, in some sense, in this field, normal distribution is a bit abnormal because it's very rare to find a normal distribution. So, the outline of my talk is this one. I will first try to define structural shocks and impulse response function. And I will then stress the first problem we find when we are working with normal distribution. It is a problem of static identification. I will define that precisely in a minute. And we shall see also that first miracle, if you like, this problem disappears if the distributions are not normal. And therefore, in this context, since we have perfectly identified model, we can estimate it. And then I will propose a way to estimate this model based on the so-called independent component analysis, which is very well known in some domain like signal extraction, things like that, but which are much less known in econometrics. And then I will propose an application. This first problem occurs when you are working with the standard VAR model, the vector autoregressive model, which is very common in macroeconometrics, since the work by Tris Sims, for instance. But in fact, a second problem occurs when you are working with structural Varma model, that is to say, when you add moving average part on the autoregressive. This problem is a problem for dynamic identification, but this problem occurs only again in the normal case. If you are not in the normal case, we have a second miracle which occurs. The identification is obtained, and therefore you can again estimate your model because it is perfectly identified, and we propose method to identify this model. Whether we are in a fundamental situation, fundamental meaning that the root of the moving average part are well behaved in some sense, whether we are in the fundamental or non-fundamental representation. So we propose some robust estimation for this case. Okay, and then I will give some conclusion. Now, before that, maybe I will remind you some basic properties of the normal distribution. It is, as you know, a distribution whose density function has this well-known Bale shape. I guess, here the normal distribution with zero mean unit value, the standard distribution. And this means that if you, for instance, want to see what is the probability around the small interval around 1, you have to compute this surface in black here. And of course, this density is maximal at 0, and it decays very rapidly when x goes to plus and minus infinity. It is denoted N01 because if you have a variable x which is drawn in this distribution, the expectation that it is the mean is 0, and the variance that is set here, so the expectation of the square, the mean of the square, is equal to 1. But as I said, more or less, the drawback of this distribution is that the density goes to 0 very fast when x goes to minus plus infinity. If you compare that, for instance, with the behavior of another distribution, which is the student distribution here, in dot line, with 3 degrees of freedom, for instance, we see that the repartition of the unit mass is completely different for the two distributions. And in particular, if we focus on the right tail here, we see that the tail of the student distribution is much thicker than the tail of the normal distribution. And therefore, if we assume that we are in a normal situation when the truth is the student distribution, we can make a big mistake, and in particular for the extreme values, extreme elements, which are often in practice the more interesting. So the normal distribution is not necessarily the best to use in many domains, in particular in finance and in monetary domain. Now, let's try to define what is a structural shock and impulse response function. As I said, the notion of structural shock has been very much used in macroeconomics, but surprisingly, it's not so easy to define what you mean by a structural shock. In fact, almost each macroeconomist has his or her own definition. But at least I think we could agree on a minimal condition that structural shock must satisfy. Let's consider, for instance, a YT vector, which is made of different components. For instance, in the application with YT vector, we have 3 components: so the output, the inflation, and the short rate, for instance. Just a very simple example. We say that this vector YT is driven by a structural n-dimensional Latent vector of shocks eta t if YT is a function of the present and past value of eta t, denoted by eta t bar, where, and this is crucial, the eta t are supposed to be independently and identically distributed through time, and also the component of eta t are independent, and we can always assume that there are 0 mean and unit time. So this is a minimal set of conditions, I think, that everybody agrees on in order to satisfy that latent shock structural shock should satisfy. Okay? But in this talk, I will concentrate on the linear case. That is to say, I will assume that YT is a linear function with matrix coefficient AK of the present and past value of this vector of shock. Okay. And in macroeconomics, an important issue is to compute the so-called impulse response function, that is to say, to compute the impact on, let's say, the component number I of y at day t plus h when I consider a unit shock on component number j, let's say, of eta at day t, on the structural shock under j. And this impact, by definition, this differential impact, is a conditional expectation, that it is the best prediction, if you like, of y I t plus h, given the information on the shock up to time t minus 1, and also given the information that the component number j at time t is equal to 1, minus the best prediction, again, of the same thing, y I t plus h, but without this additional information that we have a shock of 1 on the component number j and t. And it turned out that in the linear case, this function is very simple. This quantity is very simple. It's just the ij entry of the matrix H, the term of row I and column j of the matrix H. At this stage, 2 remarks are in order. The first one is that in this case, linear case, as you see, the impulse response function does not depend on the past, in fact, of eta t. The past of eta t has been cancelled out in the difference, in fact. And it is important because in some cases, we shall see that in the non-fundamental case, the past value of eta are not necessarily a function of the available information, but is to say the past value of y. Because of course the eta t are not observed, contrary to the y which are observed. The other important remark is that the eta t must be dependent through time, but also the component of each eta t, component eta jt, must be also independent. Because otherwise we could not admit that a shock on one component of eta has no repercussion on the other if they are not independent. Okay, so it's very important to assume independence and not only non-correlation. For instance, if you have two shocks, eta 1t, eta 2t, the first one is Gaussian. Let's say that the second one is eta 1t squared minus 1 divided by root 2. It is easily seen that the second shock is still zero mean unit root, and it is non-correlated with the first one. The two shocks are non-correlated. But of course they are not independent because the second one is a completely deterministic function of the first one. And therefore, the shock of the first has necessarily an impact on the second one, although they are without correlation. But of course, in this context, the key issue is the so-called identification of the AK, that is to say, the possibility to estimate them from the observation of the Y only. That is because it is the only thing you observe. And of course, it is hopeless if different AK, matrix AK, these matrices here, gives the same dynamics for the YT, because the YT is the only thing you observe. So if different set of matrices AK give the same dynamics for the YT, this is a problem of estimating the AK is completely hopeless. The model is not identified. So we consider a first identification problem is a normal case. We consider for sake of simplicity the simplest model we can imagine, that is to say the pointer no longer working. Okay, yes. This process again, YT equal the linear function of YT minus 1 plus the white noise, Gaussian white noise with zero mean and Linus covariance matrix sigma. We assume that the eigenvalue phi are modulus smaller than 1, and therefore we can express YT as the linear function of the present and past value of epsilon. But of course, the component of epsilon cannot be considered as structural because they have an instantaneous Linus covariance matrix, which is a full matrix in general, and therefore the component of each epsilon t are correlated. So the usual way to solve this problem is to introduce eta t, defined by epsilon t equals c eta t, where c prime is equal to sigma. In this case, the eta t are IID with zero mean identity matrix. And we can consider that we have a structural bar, a structural set of shock, eta t, which are given by this formula, where the AK are phi per kc. So we have a possible set of structural shock, but of course the problem is that they are not uniquely defined, because we can always replace C by CQ, let's say, where Q is any orthogonal matrix, and eta t is replaced by Q prime eta, and we have another equivalent representation, and therefore the AK and the structural shock are not uniquely defined. This is a basic problem we find in the autoregressive approach of macroeconometrics, since the work by Sims in particular. So there are a huge number of papers which propose additional constraints on C. For instance, we can see short-run condition, long-run condition on the impulse response function. But the more popular is the recursive constraint proposed by Sims, in which we assume that the C matrix here is lower triangular. This is a so-called Cholesky decomposition. That is, in fact, the assumption means that if an impact on the component number J of eta has no repercussion instantaneously on the other component of eta with an index k smaller than J. But it is a strong assumption, of course, because indeed it is not necessarily true, and moreover, it clearly depends on the order of the component. Okay. In the non-normal case, the problem completely disappears. And in fact, the result we will use is has been some development of very old results by Kramer, for instance, which this kind of result, in fact, paves the way of this result we have in mind. For instance, it is well known that when you have a linear combination of normal random variables which are independent, of course the result is still a normal variable, but the converse is also true. That is to say, if you have x1, xa independent random variable, and if the linear combination is normal, then the xi are necessarily normal. And Kramer also found another result which is more close to what we need, but not exactly. If you have n independent random variable, and if the linear combination is normal, then all the xi are necessarily normal. But in fact, okay, and if you have now two linear random variables, set of combination of random variables, and if the x are normal, and if the two combinations are independent, then the xi are necessarily normal again. In other words, as soon as one of the xi is non-normal, the y1 and y2 cannot be independent if you have this kind of equation here with the xi linked and independent random variable. But again, the most important result we need is the following, which is in fact a recent result we discovered a bit more than 10 years ago, which is the following. Let's consider two random vectors of the same dimension, let's say eta t and eta t star, with independent component. Okay. Both have independent component, and the eta t star is a linear combination of eta t. If at most one component of eta t is normal, then in fact the two vector eta t star and eta t are in fact globally the same. That is to say, they are the same up to a permutation and a scale factor. Okay, so in particular, if we normalize the thing, that is to say, if we assume that the variance of the component is equal to 1, and if eta t and eta t star are independent component, and if m is orthogonal, which implies, of course, that the variance covariance matrix of eta t star is also identity, and if eta t has at most one normal component, then the two vector eta t and eta t star are almost the same. They are just, you just have to rename to permute the component, and possibly we can change the sign, but they are virtually the same. This is the main result that we used for showing that the static lack of identification disappears as soon as one shot is, at most one shot is not normal, but the other are, one shot is normal at most, and the other are not normal. So this has important consequences. In the normal one case, the structures are identified up to a relabeling of sign chains. And therefore, all the usual additional constraints which have been introduced in the literature, there are huge number of papers introducing additional constraints in order to reach identification. In fact, this constraint becomes over-identification constraint, and they can be tested. And again, since we are in a situation where the model is identified, we can try to estimate it. And I propose here a method based on independent component analysis, and more precisely, the application of a pseudo-maximum likelihood method applied to independent component analysis. But first of all, I would like to say that we could have a natural idea, which is a bad idea. That is to say, if we are in a non-normal situation, so with a structural var, we want to build a structural var, let's say, from this autoregressive process of order 1, and if we are in a non-normal situation, we could assume that epsilon t is following, for instance, a multivariate student distribution, which is a rather natural idea. Because the set of multivariate student distribution have a variance covariance matrix sigma, and we can reach any variance covariance matrix sigma, and in particular, we could, by a suitable transformation, we can obtain a vector eta t which has the variance covariance matrix, which is identity. But the problem is that the multivariate student distribution with identity covariance matrix is not independent. The components are not independent because it is easily seen that the joint distribution is not the product of a function of each component. And therefore, this multivariate student distribution does not contain what we want, that is to say the independence of the component. A better idea is, as I said, something based on independent component analysis. What is the independent component analysis? Well, at least in its simplest form, it is the following problem. Again, it has been very much studied in, for instance, signal processing, speech recognition, things like that. You have a vector ut which is observable, and it is a linear function of another vector of same size, let's say, eta t, which is not observable, and c is unknown. We assume that the eta t are IID with independent components, independently this IID meaning independently IID, so it's misprint here, independently identically distributed with independent component and with at most one normal component. And we assume, for sake of simplicity, that they are Gaussian and with variance identities. Okay? And of course, the true density of the component of eta I, the component of eta are unknown. So since C is orthogonal, ut is also zero mean and variance covariance matrix identity. And the problem is to estimate C from observation of U1, U2, UT. Of course, in a normal situation, it's just impossible because C is not identified. But in the non-normal case, we have C, thanks to the result I just mentioned before, C is identifiable. Well, in the signal processing literature, this problem is known as the cocktail party problem, because we have, for instance, the component of eta t are some acoustic sources, that say, for instance, the voices of different participants of a cocktail party. But of course, these participants speak together, so what the sensor records are a mixture of these voices, and the problem is to disentangle these different message and to reconstitute each voice of each participant. Okay, so what we propose here is a pseudo-maximum likelihood approach, which is the following. We just assume that each component of eta I t is distributed according to some pseudo-PDF, which has actually nothing to do with the truth. And we do as if it was the truth. And we compute the likelihood function. The pseudo-likelihood function, because again, Gi is not necessarily the true PDF. But it turned out a very striking result. In fact, we double-checked the proof because it was very surprising, but it is true for any distribution, even if it is completely different from the true one. You get something which is asymptotically consistent and normal. So this gives a very wide set of possibilities to estimate the matrix C and therefore to reconstitute the eta t given the ut. So how do we use that? And of course we can also test whether C is equal to some given C star given a priori. How do we use that in the S bar situation? Well, we just estimate as usual the phi metric by ordinary square. We compute the residual. We compute the empirical variance covariance matrix of the residual. And we apply the independent component analysis to the standardized residual. And we find the standard structural shocks. Without any ambiguity, they are defined uniquely. Let's consider an application. As I said, we consider a very simple example with three endogenous variables: inflation, economic activity, and nominal short rates on the US data, quarterly data. We use a bar with 6 lag, and we first, of course, check whether the residuals are normal, and in fact, we reject normality. And we apply the independent component analysis. As I said, the shocks are completely defined up to real ability. We just have to put a name on them, in fact. And we put a name according to the usual properties. That is to say, we admitted that a contractionary monetary shock have a negative impact on activity and inflation. Supply shock have a positive sign impact on activity and inflation. And a demand shock have the same sign impact on activity and inflation. With only this a priori, we can put just a name, but not this condition does not appear in the construction of the shock. It's just to put a name on the shocks. And we can test the usual recursive approaches, which are these three orders. In general, we assume that the RT is the last one, because we assume in general that a monetary shock has no instantaneous repercussion on the other variable. So the more usual recursive approaches are the one based on this order on the variable. And both recursive approaches are rejected. Therefore, if we look at the impulse response function, for instance, we have here in dark the impulse response function based on the independent component analysis. It turns out that some of them are very similar to the one proposed by the recursive approach, which are in gray here. But in some cases, for instance, if we look at the supply shock on the activity, we see that not only the shape is different, but sometimes the signs are different. And therefore, if we use this a priori on the recursive chain, we could make some important mistakes, in fact. Because the C matrix is full. It is not a low triangular matrix. You have many instantaneous interactions between the shocks. Okay, since time is going very fast, I will go very fast on the second part on this talk. And there is another problem which occurs when we add moving average part on the authoritative part. And the idea is very simple. In fact, let's consider the simplest moving average process you can imagine, a moving average process of order 1. This one, if yt equals epsilon t minus theta epsilon minus 1. If theta is smaller than 1 in absolute value, we can, of course, express epsilon t in terms of the present and past value of y. We can invert, in fact, this equation. And epsilon t, in this case, is the so-called innovation. That is to say, it is the difference between yt and the best prediction of yt at the previous state. But if theta is larger than 1, you can express epsilon t in terms of the future value of yt. And in this case, epsilon t is no longer the innovation. We say that we have a non-fundamental implementation. In the normal case, the problem is the following. If you start with this model here, epsilon t minus theta, epsilon t minus 1, and if the epsilon t are Gaussian normal, if you just invert theta and replace theta by 1 over theta, this defines another process, epsilon t star, which is also Gaussian and which is also white noise Gaussian with a different variance, sigma t squared, theta t squared, theta squared. Therefore, the pair of parameters, theta sigma squared, and 1 over theta and theta squared sigma squared are completely equivalent. This is the so-called dynamic identification problem. This problem occurs in the normal case, but in the non-normal case, it disappears. Why? Because, very briefly, again, because time is running fast, if you do the same thing here, for instance, if epsilon t at the beginning is non-Gaussian, you consider the epsilon t star process defined in this way. This process is still a so-called weak white noise, that is to say, a process in which all the time correlations are zero. But it is not a strong white noise, it is not independent. If the white is not Gaussian. And this is the sources of identification. Okay? I don't have time to give the details, but of course, if you consider now the more complicated case of ARMA PQ, that is to say, if you put lights on both on the autoregressive side, on the moving average side, it is well known that again, if you replace the when you introduce the lag operator and you introduce the theta L, phi L, theta L polynomial, as usual, we assume that the root of phi L are modulus larger than 1, but the root of theta of L must be of modulus larger or smaller than 1. It is well known that if you take theta L and if you replace the root of theta L by the inverse, this takes a case where they are all real, you replace just some of them by the inverse. You have, in the normal case, you have a perfectly equivalent representation. But of course, only one representation gives you the innovation. So only one is so-called fundamental. And in the non-normal case, all the epsilon t star which are obtained in this way are all weak white noise, that is without correlation, but they are not strong white noise. And again, it is the source of the identification. Of course, in the Jean-Varma process, well, I just say that things are worse in some sense, but again, in the non-normal case, we can identify. This is due to this, again, a very recent result, which is this one. If you have a vector yt, which is a linear function of path value of eta t, where the eta t are independently, identically distributed, and with the mean unit variance. If the process is non-normal, then the k are uniquely defined up to a permutation and of a sign change of the columns. So this is the reason of the identification. In the non-normal case again. Maybe we could say, well, the non-fundamental representation are some curiosity, there are exceptions, but it is not true at all. In many situations, in many economic situations, you find representations which are not fundamental. For instance, let's consider this very simple model taken from this paper here. CT is the consumption, WT is the labor, it is IID, and we consider that we introduce the so-called surplus, which is the difference between YT and CT. And let's assume that CT is a standard autoregressive process of order 1, stationary, but you only observe the T. Okay. It turns out that the dynamics of the T is the norma 1,1, this one, and the coefficient of the moving average part is AR, and in general, since R is a gross interest rate, it is larger than 1 in general, and therefore AR is in general larger than 1, and therefore you have a non-fundamental representation due to the lack of observability. When you introduce prediction also, it is very easy to obtain non-fundamentalness. For instance, if you assume that yt is a linear combination of the expectation of a variable wt plus h at data plus h, and if wt is a well-behaved, in some sense, fundamental moving average process, well, it turns out that yt is also a moving average process of order 1, but non-fundamental. Very simple computation that I don't give the details. Again, for prediction error, it is almost the same idea. In rational expectation also, in rational expectation model, which are also very common, if you have this equation, which defines implicitly yt as a linear function of the best prediction of yt plus 1 times p plus xt, and suppose that xt is equal to, let's say, sin t minus q, which is the white noise, that is, there is a lag impact, sin t has a lag impact on s. It turns out that yt is a moving average process of order q, and it is easy to check that all the roots of theta are modulus smaller than 1, and therefore, again, it is a non-fundamental representation. So there are many, many examples of non-fundamental representation, and therefore it is not a good idea to assume a priori that the representation is fundamental, as it is very often done in practice. Robust estimation, just a word. We could try some parametric approach. For instance, assume that the epsilon t have some a distribution belonging to some family indexed by gamma. So in theory, we could write the Lagrange function, but the problem is, even in the very simple case of a moving average process of order 1, we have to distinguish two cases, because the Lagrange function has two expressions, two forms, depending whether theta is smaller than 1 or larger than 1. And of course, if you have only two possibilities, that's not a problem, but if you consider now a moving average process of order q, you have up to 2 per q possibilities, and of course, in the vector case, it's just a mess. You have many, many possibilities, and you cannot use the maximal Lagrange process method. So we have other possibilities, either parametric based on the pseudo-Lagrange function. I don't give the detail again because the time is running too fast. And you can also use moment method. But of course, intuitively, you have to use moment of at least 3, because if you use only moment of order 1, 2, this is not identifiable, because if it was identifiable, this would be, identifiable in the normal distribution, and we have seen that this is not the case. Okay, so just some conclusion. First, it is important that the error to be shocked have to be dependent, not only uncorrelated. There is no static neighbor dynamic identity problem if the error terms are non-normal, which is, again, very frequent in practice. The error term differs from the innovation in the case of non-fundamentalness, as we have seen in many examples. The standard estimation may be misleading, based on maximum likelihood or Kalman filter and so on, can be misleading because, in general, they assume that the root of the moving average process are well behaved in some sense. In the non-normal case, the structural restrictions which are introduced, again, there are dozens and dozens of papers on that point, introducing additional restrictions in order to reach identification. Well, if we are pessimistic, we can say they have no meaning, they have no value. But if we want to put that on a more positive way, we can say that maybe these restrictions are worth testing, and we can test them, and we can reject them possibly. And in fact, in the example, we have rejected this a priori. And finally, in the non-normal case, we have consistent asymptotically normal method, which are valid whatever the moving average part is fundamental or non-fundamental. This method has been briefly described just a minute ago. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
therefore take the chance to correct myself. I said at the beginning that we are a business school. The Ca' Foscari was established as a school in economics and commerce, and today we have a very fine sense of what economics can be and how deep mathematics we have behind economics. And I wish the people who practice economics had the same deep understanding of the theories behind. Maybe we wouldn't have made such mistakes as the ones we've seen in the past decades. Thank you very much for your lecture, and thank you all for being here. We have a small cocktail party to celebrate. Thank you again.